Welcome to the Missouri Pharmacy Podcast, where we discuss the important issues impacting one of the most trusted professions in healthcare. From the opioid epidemic to opportunities in the profession of pharmacy, we discuss the issues pharmacists want to hear about.
Hi, I'm Henrio Thelemaque, lobbyist for the Missouri Pharmacy Association. We're doing a new thing called Podcast with the Lobbyist, right? So we're going to talk about the 2023 session, kind of recap some of the things that happened, some of the things that didn't happen, and the overall tenor of the Missouri legislature. So this year, and as I'm talking to you guys, I'm going to be looking at my phone just to look through notes. This year was quite an interesting year, right? One of the things that happened is this is one of the lowest passage of bills this year. The last time we had such a low bill passage was in 2020, and that was COVID year, where we basically shut down session for about 3 months, I'd say. And now this year we only passed 43 non-budget bills. That's significantly lower than it has been the past few years, excluding 2020. Some of the dynamics kind of came about due to the election cycle last year. There were new members of the House and new members of the Senate. All of this played a role into introducing a new dynamic, especially on the Senate side. In 2021 or 2022, the Conservative Caucus came about, right? There's 7 members of the Conservative Caucus who kind of split away from what most would call the moderate Republicans on the Missouri Senate side. The moderate Republicans aren't by any means not Republicans. It's just that the tenor of which how to get things done shifted. And that played a large dynamic in how some of the conversations in the tenor of the Missouri Senate happened. That being said, the Missouri House and the Missouri Senate had new leadership this year. The new floor leader is actually, it's a historic majority floor leader. His name is John Patterson. He's the first minority floor leader, Republican minority floor leader. He is of Asian descent, and he became floor leader this year. And now we have a new speaker, Representative Dean Plocher, who was the floor leader previously, whilst the previous speaker, Rob Viscova, was the speaker. Now Speaker Dean Plocher is in that seat, and he will term out next year in 2024. On the Senate side, we have 2 new leaders on the Senate side voted in by the caucus. Senator Caleb Rowden is now Speaker Pro Tem. He was the floor leader previously, and Majority Floor Leader Cindy O'Laughlin from the northeast portion of Missouri. Both of these, both leadership groups had priorities that they wanted to get passed, and some of the priorities passed, some of them didn't, right? As I said before, the tenor of the Missouri Senate kind of changed this year. On pharmacy-specific issues, MPA worked on behalf of pharmacy to pass and also hinder the passage of certain legislation that may impact your profession. One of the biggest things that passed this year is the Scope of Practice Act. So Senator Thompson Rader in the Southeast Missouri corridor and Representative Benny Cook both played large roles in filing and also helping us negotiate legislation for the expansion of pharmacy practice. Senator Thompson Rader had Senate Bill 41, and Representative Benny Cook had House Bill, I can't remember the House Bill for the life of me right now. I believe it's 331. Both of these bills played large roles in helping us maneuver this new dynamic of the General Assembly. Senator Thompson Rader's bill went through the committee process, went through professional registration, which is chaired by Senator Carla Esslinger. With the senator's help, we were able to come to the table with the physician groups and found a compromise in committee. That being said, the final legislation wasn't done until we hit the Senate floor. Senator Thompson Rader went to the Senate floor and went to the mat for pharmacy. She was able to negotiate with the physicians as well as MPA, work to negotiate with the physicians to basically create a new way for pharmacists to interact with patients. So some of the biggest things that passed in this bill, the first is the independent authority for immunizations. So once the governor signs one of the 3 bills that we passed on, the bills that we passed on were House Bill 115, sponsored by Representative Shields. Senate Bill 157, sponsored by Senator Russ C. Black. And then Senate Bill 4590, which was sponsored by Senator Elaine Gannon. All three of these bills contain the Pharmacy Scope of Practice Act. In this legislation, it now allows pharmacists to independently immunize children and adults of all ages, starting from the age of 7 and up. Pharmacists will now be able to independently immunize patients without the need for a protocol with a physician. What this means is you will be the administrator of whichever vaccine it is. There are some exclusions in the legislation, and it includes travel vaccines such as anthrax, Japanese encephalitis, monkeypox, yellow fever, and those kinds of vaccines. There are some other vaccines that were excluded, but mainly, for example, polio, right? The polio was eradicated. We're hoping it's still eradicated, but that is something that doesn't have a timetable or time frame that the CDC says, hey, patient X, go get this vaccine. So those vaccines aren't eligible to be administered by pharmacists without a protocol. But all routine vaccines for folks age 7 and up, a pharmacist will be able to independently immunize these patients. Now, the vaccines you can administer have to be approved as of January 1, 2023, but there should be no limitations for the current vaccines that have been approved by the CDC and FDA as their routine vaccines, such as flu, COVID, and all the other vaccines such as that. Now, another portion of the bill also expands the practice of pharmacy significantly. So right now there's the MTS, Medication Therapeutic Services, right? So you get a one-on-one referral from a physician in order to potentially provide a patient with whatever services that the physician believes that a pharmacist should be able to provide to that patient, such as diabetes management, right? But this year we were able to work with the physicians and found a compromise that basically says, hey, look, a pharmacist has been doing this on a one-on-one referral. So why don't we say that we have more of a collaborative manner with a physician? So in essence, the practice of nursing and physician assistants have collaborative practice agreements with a physician where they treat all the patients of said physician. What we were able to do is find a compromise where pharmacists are now able to do that with a physician. So if a physician and a pharmacist see that, look, let's create a protocol for pharmacist Jane to treat all the patients of physician Joe, right? So that is now that will now go into statute effectively after the governor signs the bills in August. That being said, there were some other provisions within the bill that also passed, mainly regarding the need for authority for the Department of Health and Senior Services in case of emergencies for for pharmacists to be able to serve their communities. But some of the biggest things were the practice expansion, again, independent authority for immunizations, and the collaborative practice agreement, or in essence, protocol with the physician. Now, regarding PBMs, that is something we've heard pharmacy owners, pharmacists talk about significantly. This year, we filed 2 bills, one on the House side, sponsored by Representative Dale Wright and Senator Mike Bernskoetter. Both of them filed their respective bills, but due to some major backlash from industry groups, representative insurers, and PBMs, and also labor, we weren't able to maneuver the bill as we have in previous years on the House side. The bill got bogged down in the House Rules Committee. Whilst it did get a vote, I believe the second to last week of session, the bill died in the Rules Committee. What this says, in essence, is that there seems to be strong opposition on the bill, but that doesn't mean that there's no way to maneuver some of these facets. And that's something that MPA is gearing up for in 2024, but we'll talk about that at a later date when we give a outline and a prediction of what 2024 looks like and some of the things to be on the lookout for. That being said, I'd say whilst the PBM bill did not get passed, I'd say this is a successful session for pharmacy as we've vastly expanded the scope of pharmacy. Our team was able to negotiate with the physicians in a manner that we've always tried and strived to do, but this year we were able to build some camaraderie, show the impact that pharmacists have had since the COVID-19 pandemic and since long before then. And that is where we're at. In the future date, we'll discuss what 2024 looks like, and we hope you listen.